So what is the official name of this podcast?
SC Artist on Artist.
All right. Well, welcome to the SC Artist on Artist podcast again. I'm JP Melendez again, and I'm here this beautiful morning.
It's good to know the name. You know?
Yeah. I keep on forgetting. I'm pretty sure that's how I started the last one, by asking what the name of this was.
What's the name of this podcast?
Yeah.
You know, we're kind of doing this as we go. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
Look, the end product's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's just...
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, and I'm here this beautiful morning with a colleague, friend, and mentor, Dr. Thaddeus Jones Jr., man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit what you're about, man.
Oh, man. I am Dr. Thaddeus Jones Jr. I'm a filmmaker, musician, photographer, instructor, a little bit of everything.
You definitely are, man, and that's something that I admire about him.
That's an impressive list of things.
Yeah, and well, especially considering, and we'll get into this. All of those things have sub things under them too. You're being incredibly. You're keeping that list tight.
I'm trying to keep it real tight.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm very proud of, and I know that you are too, is you own a film studio. And you operate an independent film studio here in Columbia. Tell us a little bit about that as a business, man, because I don't know people that are just doing that.
Oh man, I own Fanatic Productions, and it's here in Columbia, South Carolina. It came about because I couldn't get a job.
Yeah.
It came about because when I graduated in 2010, and I was applying with some of the local production companies, I couldn't even get a call back or an interview.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine actually got me a gig with VH1. So I went and did that. That turned into a gig with, so it was a VH1 gig in Edgefield, South Carolina. Was for the Origins of Me, 50 Cent's origin story.
Yeah.
And so I worked that, and I worked it twice actually. And then the second time, I got a call from the lead driver. He was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you doing for the next 30 days?" And I was like, "Nothing. I'm going to my sister's graduation." So he was like, "Okay." And then it died down for a second. And then the same day, one of 50's friends, he went by the name Monster, asked me to, would I be willing to drive him to Charlotte? I was like, "All right, yeah, long as Violator's paying, I'm rolling."
Yeah.
And so I took him to Charlotte, and we had a nice conversation. And a lot of times when you're working with industry people, they say a lot of things. They, "Oh yeah, you should come out on tour with us and all this." And I was, you hear a lot of that, and then yeah, that'd be great, man. Just you don't expect to get the call. So the next day, I went to. I know this is a long story, but it'll get to it'll get to. How
I know.
So the next day, I went to my sister's graduation. I get a call from Catherine, who was running the show for the drivers, and she said, "Hey, are you ready to go?" And I was like, "Go where?" He was like, "I hear you're joining us on the tour." Yeah, I am. Yeah. So I was in Hampton, South Carolina, and she was like, "Well, are you ready to leave? Where's the closest airport?" And I was like, "Well, I'm in Hampton right now. The closest airport is Savannah, but I don't live here, and I need to go back to Columbia." So she was like, "Okay, how long does it take you to get to Columbia?" And I was like, "It's gonna take me, 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get once I finish up here." She was like, "All right, I'm gonna call you in 3 hours." So I was like, "Okay." I hugged my sister after graduation. I gotta go. Went back, and this is the crazy part. I didn't even have any bags. I didn't have any luggage. I didn't have nothing. A friend of mine was like, "Can I borrow a duffel bag?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'll let you hold my dad's." And so she gave me her dad's duffel bag, which, my bad, actually, I still have it in my closet. 14 years later, it's still in my closet.
Hey, that's a relic now.
Yeah. I don't think they want it back. And she sent me a ticket from Columbia to Detroit, and I didn't know where I was going. I got on a flight, went to Detroit. It turned out to be Summer Jam, and
Wait, Summer Jam, what year?
this was 2010.
Damn, nice. That's a good year.
This was Eminem.
Yeah.
G Unit was still a thing. And so I roll up. I get to Detroit. She tells me to take a cab to the hotel. I take a cab to the hotel. She said, "Drop your bags at the front." Yeah, okay. Like, we got a room for you, but you got to get to work. I take another cab. She said somebody's going to meet me. He met me at the back entrance. Walked me through, handed me some keys to an Escalade. Sit here. And I sat there and waited, and I got out every once in a while to peek what's going on, because I'm backstage and looking at, Ludacris is on stage, and Eminem is there. All this stuff, G Unit's performing, they come off stage. I'm back in the Escalade, and I'll never forget, this is the first day on the job. Lloyd Banks walks past me, goes to get in one, Who Kid is with them. He walks past, and they got a little entourage. And then Tony Yayo comes, and he looks me dead in the eye. I'm sitting there smiling at him. He looks at me. "Hey, yo, Banks, I'm riding with you." So he went, and got in the car with Banks. And so here I am in a nice pimped out Escalade riding through Detroit with nobody else in the vehicle but me. Following them around and whatnot, and that was my introduction to this tour. So it got better after that, but it was a nonstop breakneck pace.
I was about to say, I know that you were on that tour, and so that was your introduction to just, the machine that is media production, and that's a massive machine.
It is, and so on that tour, I met with. Who was the tour manager. So how it comes back around is we were getting close to the end of the tour, and he started talking, what are you doing? What is your plans and things of that nature. And he was like, "Man, one thing, if I was going to give you any advice, I would say learn the business." And that stuck with me. And so after the tour, his name was Divine Davey. After the tour, I came back to South Carolina, and I was like reinvigorated, like, okay, I'm going to do something, but I got to understand the business. And I wrestled with this for a little bit, and I figured, well, I'll go and get a master's degree, because there's got to be, USC's got to offer this. Right? So, and they didn't. And so I applied to the to USC program for media arts, a master's in media arts. And I was told basically that my work was academically immature, and that they didn't train underlings. And so that was what I was met with.
Were those their exact words?
Those were the exact words, because they stuck with me. They burned me.
I don't know if you can see it back here, but I graduated from USC with a bachelor's in media arts. Yeah. I can confirm they do train underlings. That's that's what they produce. I don't know what they're talking about.
So that's all they produce.
I mean, I won't say that's all they produce, but like, if you think you're going to get out of school and then just step onto a production site and be in charge, absolutely not.
From USC, no. There's some schools here where you can.
In anywhere, like. What I've learned in working in production is the fastest way to get kicked down to the bottom is on your first day, show up and say, "I went to school for this." Yeah. like you need to get down and start wrapping some cables. And like, if someone's like, "Hey, do this, go do that thing," and like, the people will trust you. But dude, when you get out of school and you step onto the field, as they say, you're with people that have been doing this for like 20, 30 years.
Yep.
And you're not going to overstep them.
Not at all.
Like, so, I don't think the college, there's a case to be made that colleges are,
It's business, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's business. And then one of the things that I really took away from that, at the time, I didn't realize how much he saved me from going down the wrong street.
Fair enough.
Because I ended up going,
Yeah.
I ended up getting into Full Sail.
Nice.
And got exactly what I needed because I wanted to learn the business. And nobody at USC was teaching the business of entertainment.
Yeah.
And so that was my first master's degree. A glutton for punishment. I got a second master's degree in creative writing, both from Full Sail.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wanted to open a production studio, I felt like I needed to know the business and I need to know how to recognize, and I was a writer as well, so how to recognize a good script and how to understand how to break a script down for production to be able to actually make the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And so that put me on that path. There's a lot in between that I'm skipping, but that's how I started my production company. Was after that tour, I knew that I wanted to do this, but I didn't know all the things, and I didn't want to be the kind of person that came into it with one. There was no mentors, right? Because again, I told you I tried to apply for jobs, and I couldn't get one here with any production company in town.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to be the kind of person that just showed up and made it up as he was going along, which a lot of people do, and that's fine. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I needed to have some foundation in fact of what the actual staples were, and then I can, one of the things they always say is you got to know the rules to break the rules.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know what those rules were, and then figure out what didn't work for me, so I could make it my own.
So, kind of going back to where we started. So, you own a production company.
Yeah.
You produce a lot.
I do.
Let's just talk about some of the stuff that you do produce, because I love you as a filmmaker, but you don't just do film.
No.
You do a lot of other stuff. You do photography, you do music, and so one of the things that I really appreciate is that you do have a really deep knowledge with how each of those mediums work intimately, because that's literally your business. It's your business to be.
It's my life.
Yeah,
it's been my life.
It is. Yeah, something that I really appreciate is it's not just your vocation, but it's also your avocation too.
Mm-hmm.
This is everything that I've known about you, your identity. You identify as an artist.
Yeah.
And you're also a great educator. We've had discussions before. I believe that there's a unifying media theory. Somewhere out there in the ether, there is a unifying media theory for how all of these things tie together. Maybe we just aren't quite there yet. But there's a lot of, especially when it comes to photography, a lot of stuff that's very accessible. Same thing with music. A lot of music production stuff is very accessible.
Now.
Yes, now. True. What would you say to someone who thinks that they can, like you said before, just, I'm just going to put this together and it's going to happen. Like, what would your advice be to someone like that?
I think it depends on, I always begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing it just for me, then absolutely I can.
Yeah.
Because it's for me. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I'm making it for me. If we're in the same boat together and you are digging what I'm putting down, great. But if I'm trying to make a career, and this has always been the distinction for me, if I'm trying to make a career out of something, if I'm trying to make a living, to take care of my family, to pay my bills, to pay my rent, to put gas in my car and food on my table, I have a responsibility to understand that it is a business. Like, we're understanding that, entertainment business, show business is more business than show.
Mm-hmm.
It's more understanding that the contract is necessary. All right. The model release is necessary. The split sheet is necessary, or else you're going to be in trouble when the money comes.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, if you're doing it just for you because you enjoy it, don't stop. Keep going. That's great. If you're doing it because you enjoy it and you want to make a living at it, get educated. And that doesn't mean go to school. That means be willing to do the research. Sometimes it's as simple as getting with somebody who knows. I give away so much information. I'm really happy to give it away, right? A lot of times.
You are. Absolutely. That's one of the things I like about you, man. You are an involuntary mentor, whether someone likes it or not.
I do not want someone else to have to spend the money that I spent to get this education.
Yeah.
Now, as I get older and my time, I start to realize that time is the most precious commodity. Mm-hmm. I have to charge a little bit of something for some of the things that I offer.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm going to be intentional and working just with you, I have to put something. I have to put a number to that to make it worth it. Right. But if we're just having coffee and we're just kicking it, listen, I'll give you information all day. But if you're coming to me and asking like, hey, I need you to help me walk me through this process, then yeah, there's a cost to that. But just as far as just getting together, I give away so much information.
You know, I'd say on the flip side, I think that's also something for emerging artists to remember as well and keep in mind. And something that I personally try to do myself is, as an emerging artist, as someone who's, you know, really starting to cut my teeth in what I hope to be my career for the rest of my life, I make sure that if I am, you know, asking for another professional's intentional help, that I am paying them for that, just because I want to set the example, at least for myself, like, hey, whenever I'm in that position, like I'm gonna have to do this too.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. There are people that have mentored me as well, and they're like, it's a symbiotic relationship, mm-hmm. right? If you are being mentored by someone, they see something in you that they see that's valuable. Mm-hmm. They see this as a good use of their time. Right? And that's great. It's another thing to be that person that is constantly undervaluing the mentor's time and not thinking they've got other things that they need to take care of. Yeah. And you're constantly like, hey, you know, what about such and such and such? It devalues your relationship, mm-hmm. right? So it needs to be what they say, quid pro quo, right? If you're working with someone, there's got to be a back and forth. And I don't know what that is for that relationship with you. It could be whatever, right? Yeah. It could be that, you know, you are a musician and they need that aspect of in their business. Mm-hmm. It could be that they just like to be around younger folks and understand that that's how they stay relevant and understand mm-hmm. what's going on. It could be any number of things, but the relationship has to be mutually beneficial. Yeah. And then the other thing about that is that, like somebody starting out, I don't look down that they don't know. Here's the biggest thing: you can't start out and act like you know everything. Mm. Some people start off and they go, well, in school they taught me to. Well, this is the real world, right? You're not in school anymore. Yeah. You're mm-hmm. out here with everybody else, and the way that they taught you to wrap that cable is going to get you kicked off set. So let me show you the right way mm-hmm. that we do it. You know, the way that they told you to break down this script is not beneficial to actually an indie way of production. Yeah. Let me show you how we have adjusted to do it for what we need, right?
Yeah, there is a difference
mm-hmm.
between academic and pragmatic, especially when it comes to all the technical stuff, and we, especially film, because film is such a collaborative medium. I mean, I feel like, again, because of the technology of this day, it's very easy, especially for younger people, to be under the illusion that they have to do the whole production start to finish. That was funny. That was but they've got to do the whole production start to finish by themselves because all of those tools are in their iPhone.
They are driving me nuts with that. And I'm so happy that we have iPhone. But when I was a kid,
back in my day,
I'm okay, boomer, right? Back in my day, there was no digital, right? The first thing I took any kind of film on was a Bolex. And yeah, right. I was shooting film photography and directing and developing actual film.
Yeah.
So there was this.
That's before digital tape.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember when that was new and high tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember getting my first
480p, baby.
mini DV cam.
Yeah.
And was like, yes, I'm in here. Right. And it was just so exciting. But what people don't realize is that tape, that film, made you really selective about what you shot, film-wise, photography-wise, and audio. I remember being in the studio recording to DAT, and DAT tapes were expensive as hell. So you didn't just go in and I'm gonna work on it in the studio. No. You got to have this down pat because we paying by the hour, and two, if we need to go over to a second DAT, that just blew our whole production package out the water.
Yeah.
And so, like, I remember I recorded a song called Shadows of a Man when I was first starting out, and it was recorded on DAT, and we were like, yeah, we felt so legit, right? Because you have this physical tape that you now need to take and get transferred to another medium that other people can hear it on.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like it is now. See, I think now we have unlimited takes, and a lot of people are shooting that way. I don't shoot that way. We've been on set with me. I do not shoot like a water hose of stuff. I shoot exactly what I need. I might shoot a little bit of coverage on B-roll. That's the number one thing that I will go overboard on is B-roll. Everything else, I'm editing in my head as I'm going along. That's the shot. Okay, we can move on. And some people get that, right? And some people don't. But for my budgets, right, what I'm working with, I have to be able to see it ahead of time. And these kids now, when they're using their iPhone, I don't think they have I don't want to say they don't have the vision. I don't think they have been trained to see the vision, because what they have been trained to do is fire hose, and then cut, right? Because it's so accessible.
Yeah.
But I can remember, like I said, shooting photography, you've got a limited amount of film. You can't just shoot.
Yeah.
Every picture needs to tell a story. Every frame tells a story, which is my new tagline. Every picture tells a story, because it works for photography, it works for film, and people just don't get it. It is not the fire hose effect.
And I think you're right that they haven't been trained, they haven't been taught. Because the thing is, if you are, and especially in my experience, if you're filming and shooting with intention, the way that you're describing, the post-production process is so much easier.
So much easier.
Yeah, and that's kind of
That's the point.
That's the point. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that's the, if you're doing it along, the more work you do on the front end, the less work you got to do on the back end.
Yeah.
And that's the same. So that's one of the tenets of being an. So my doctorate is in project management, but specifically creative project management, and that is one of the tenets of being a good steward of any project. Is that I have to, when I spend a ton of time in pre-production, because I have to anticipate what these needs are going to be, what the framing is going to be, what gear I'm going to need ahead of time, so that I can mitigate any problems that might pop up, so that we're not making a plan B on the fly.
Right.
We already have a plan B if plan A gets derailed.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes once you've done that enough, it appears to people looking at you that you are making it up on the fly. They just don't know you've done that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
You, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's, and so, yeah, you're exactly right.
When I teach my students So 'cause I teach as well. So I teach at Midlands Tech.
Nice.
And so when I teach my students this, I'm telling them, and I have to try to make it relatable. So I make it relatable in this way. I say, listen, if you don't go to the gym, but you tell me every day you go to the gym, you're not hurting me. You're hurting you.
Yeah.
You have to get the reps in to get the results.
Yeah.
So if you don't do the pre-production planning, it doesn't hurt me. It hurts you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not getting the reps in. And then when you get a big project, you're overwhelmed. I'm giving you small projects to help you start to lift the weight, to get the reps in, to understand. Same thing with shooting.
Well, you're right, dude. I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're exactly right.
And so what I try to get them to understand is that what you do is really for you, right? And so this is like, I don't give homework. I give homework, but I don't check homework. It's not that I don't want to see your work. It's that you have to be self-motivated. If you're only doing it because I told you you need to do it, when you're not in my class, you're not going to do it. You have to understand and see that how this benefits you. The same thing for editing. When I teach my editing class, I give you all the assets, and I tell you what, hey, make this, but I make it vague. I don't give them a time limit. Most of the time, sometimes in the beginning, I give them a little 2-minute time limit because, as we know, it's easier to make things longer than it is to make things shorter.
Oh yeah.
So I give them a little room to play with. But as we roll through the course, I stop giving them time limits. I want you to explore what you can do. I stop putting the boundaries up for what footage you can use. So a lot of times I give you some footage, and I didn't say you couldn't go and get extra B-roll from something else. I didn't say you couldn't go and shoot something else. But the assumption that most of these folks make is that they can't.
Yeah.
And so I, as someone who's teaching production, I have to get you out of the mindset of you can't. Who said you can't? Who said that was a rule?
So you're trying to get them out of the mindset of having to be told what it's like. You need to know your workflow, and you need to know what you need to make the thing that you
want to make.
Yeah.
That you said you want to make.
That's right.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because so my relationship with academia is complex. And one of the times I went back to school was the most recent time I went back to school at Trident Tech, learning media production. And it was really interesting because even my experience, not only just with having been in school, but also an actual creative experience, there was moments in time where my professor would give instructions, and I would notice that there are some pretty open borders in what they were asking for. And so just me being myself, I allow myself to be creative and stuff like that. And there were so many times where my professors would be like, oh my God, this is the first time I've ever had a student do this the way that you do. Why did you no, not questioning my motivations. What was oh, it just made sense to me. That's great. But the thing is, I had that to draw from because I had the experience. I'm sure if I were to pull up my old scripts from my script writing class at USC, I probably should at some point just to have a good laugh.
Listen, that's how it works.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do this industry is tough. First off, this is the industry will beat you up. It still beats me up. I still get moments where I'm like, man, I'm gonna give up. I gotta do something else. But it's who I am, right? And so once you understand that it's in you, you got to realize that, all right, nobody's going to wake me up every day and say, you need to do this thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say you need to go take some pictures today. Nobody's going to say you need to film today or write a song or whatever. So creative entrepreneurs have to be self-motivated.
Yeah.
And they also need this tactile portion, and this is how I design my classes. There's a tactile portion of the actual thing that you're going to do. But then there's this mindset portion that nobody teaches,
Mm-hmm.
that they expect you to come to the realization on your own. And I try to create the circumstances to have a conversation with you about why this mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't go into it and talk about it like that. We just have a real conversation. You chose to pay to come to this course. Okay. What is it about this thing
Yeah.
that keeps you coming back? What is it about photography and videography that made you say, I think I can do this?
Mm-hmm.
And once we start having those conversations, we can really get down to the core of why you want to do the thing that you said you want to do. And as an artist, that is the paramount piece that you have to keep at the forefront of any kind of work that you're going to do. The why you chose to do it to begin with. Now, there are some artists that are strictly in it for the money. They've got an innate talent from God, and they are the outliers.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, those people are the outliers. Most of us, we have a talent, but we have to work at refining that talent.
Mm-hmm.
We have an innate talent. That talent means you have to work to refine it.
Yeah.
Right. And so some people think that the talent is enough, and so they never grow. But
TikTok.
but the talent itself is just the beginning. You have to feed it. You have to nourish it. You have to expand on it, and be a good steward of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of people that I remember a kid I grew up with who was super talented at basketball. He was like 4 foot, 5 foot something. But he had a handle. He played with no shoes on, in the dirt, on the concrete. He didn't care.
Yeah.
Huge talent. The way he maneuvered with a basketball, anywhere on the court, he could put it up, it's going in. But he was lazy. Like he just and again, circumstances can make or break you. Your environment can make or break you. He had a troubled upbringing. And so there was never anyone there to really nurture the talent.
Yeah.
Right? At a point where somebody could have said, hey, get these other things under control. Let's play ball. Right? And really could have poured into him. Nobody did that. And so this kid who everybody saw had a super talent for this game never got to his full potential. And I saw that happening in real time. And man, it broke my heart. I started to see people around me where I grew up in Hampton County that had so much talent, but nobody, and myself included, I felt like, I felt like I had a talent, but there was nobody there to nurture those things.
Yeah.
And I was in arts, I was in acting and drama. And so I did have some teachers that poured into me, like, you can write, you should be doing writing, you can act, you should be doing some acting.
Yeah.
But beyond high school,
No. Yeah.
there was nothing there.
Well, and here's the thing too, is that you also have people like that as soon as they become aware of what their talent is capable of becoming, and if they're looking around and they aren't seeing that there's anyone willing to help them, or because especially like we talked earlier about the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? The what you know and how you know it, and that wonderful graph. You bring it up at some point. It's a really interesting thing if you don't know what it is, looking up the Dunning-Kruger effect. But if as soon as you become aware that that there are things that you don't know, and that there has to be someone out there who does know and can instruct you. If you can't find that person, if you're that kind of a self-starter, you're going elsewhere to find it.
What's the frustrating part of that is that when you're limited in resources, and again, we were talking about internet,
Mm-hmm.
right? Internet wasn't a thing. So you're trapped,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that breeds a discontent with life,
Mm-hmm.
a discontent with self. And when you don't really understand how much you don't know how to find help, you don't know what you don't know, right? And you don't know that you don't know sometimes.
Yeah.
And so all of these things play together till this is how you get people with talent strung out on drugs. They are looking for an escape
Mm-hmm.
from, God, I got to get out of my head, right? And this has been a thing for me, honestly. One of the things that really hurt me, I was homeless for a while because I was chasing this dream and I just didn't understand why I wasn't getting the traction that I needed, why the support wasn't there, why I felt like I had talent, but why the breaks would just not fall for me, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you do when you feel like, damn, I've gone as far as I can go? God hates me. That's what you
Mm-hmm.
start
Yeah.
to believe.
Yeah.
And so this is how you end up.
Yeah.
For me,
There's a lot of to your own brain. There's a lot of evidence that supports that.
yeah, supports that.
Yeah.
And so once you hear that in your mind and resign to that, you start making choices based off that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did the same exact thing. I there was a time where I was in a rap group and we were performing in Augusta and doing things. I ended up homeless in Augusta. I ended up having to move back home after right at 9/11, and parents don't understand a lot of things that you're going through. My mom was like, "You can't come back over here," because I wasn't living right. Like,
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of drugs and doing all kind of crazy stuff. Eventually, I did get back home, but one of the things, excuse me, coffee talking. One of the things that happened was I just stopped believing in anything. I was a miserable person, and I made people around me miserable. And so it was easy to see life through that lens.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I was and then you make bad decisions. I owned a bread truck at that time. I was a miserable person. Although I did have some experiences that stuck with me while I was doing that, I can remember sitting underneath a big oak tree. This is the breaking point, and asking God, why did you do this to me? Like, literally having a conversation. And I tell people this, and I'm not crazy. God said, I didn't do this to you. You did it to yourself.
That's right.
You did it to yourself.
Yeah.
This is the culmination of all of your own choices.
Yeah.
But then he whispered that it's not too late. And that was the turning point in my life.
Yeah, one of a phrase that my mom always says is God never puts you in a situation that you can't figure your way out of. Like if there's a way in, there's a way out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's it's man, as a young artist, you're right. Especially without the resources, that knowledge, that functioning, knowledge of how things work, it is no wonder it was easy for you to fall to despair because you had no frame of reference. I'm so glad that you had the opportunities, that you recognized the opportunities for what they were, and were able to act on those quickly.
I just no, it wasn't quick. Dude.
It
took a decade.
Well, I don't know, man. Driving from Hampton to Columbia in 2.5 hours. That I feel like if there was I feel like there's a highway patrol officer that might have wanted to talk to you at some point.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. No, it was a decade of me trying things. I worked at the place where the monkeys escaped from. I worked there.
Yamaseo, yeah.
Yeah, I had a job there.
Alpha Genesis.
Alpha
Yeah.
Genesis.
So I worked there. I did. I went to Job Corps. I came back from Job Corps, and I did. Worked at a custom shop called Gunpoint Graphics, and learned how to do custom motorcycle tanks and fenders and painting.
Yeah.
I waited tables at a Huddle House. Like, I had all these different kinds of experiences and jobs in that 10 years that I dropped out of college.
Yeah.
So what sent me down that spiral was I went to South Carolina State first. My grandmother was like, just go to college and you can work on this art thing after college. And then she got sick and passed away, and I hitchhiked to New York when I hitchhiked, she was still alive. I got stuck in a nor'easter. This was like 98, 99, where the whole like East Coast had shut down around DC area, and I got stuck. And by the time I got to New York, I didn't know it, but that she had already passed away. I went to my friend Alex's house in Fort Greene, stayed the night there. He took me to where I'm like at 4:00 in the morning. I got out of the truck because I hitchhiked with a truck driver, and walked past the A&P down to his place. He was like, it's 4:00 in the morning. Visiting hours aren't, he already knew, but he didn't tell me. My mom was going to tell me. She had already made it up. I hitchhiked ahead of her thinking I was going to get there first, and it didn't work out. But anyway, that was a pivotal moment for me because I was going to college for her.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to college, not for me, but for her.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, well, what is the point of any of this? And this is where I really started to have like, me and God were feuding, right? Because why would you take the person that understood me, the one person that I felt understood me and the arts in me and the things that I wanted to do, why would you take that person from me? And then not even give me an opportunity to say my piece to her.
Yeah.
And so that it still chokes me up. That to this day is still a thing with me, like, right? But I've had to make some kind of peace with that because in that 10 years after coming back from her funeral, I was a zombie. I was doing all of these different things to numb myself. And what I found out was that if you don't acknowledge that hurt, that pain, whatever it is, it's going to rear itself.
Yeah.
It's going to come back. And you're going to keep making dumb decisions until you get it.
Yeah.
And that's just life. You learn the lesson or we repeat it. Oh, you didn't get it this way. Yeah, I mean, if anybody is a big Bible reader, Jesus reads those stories to you. He gives you the same parable 3 different ways so you can understand. Oh, you're not getting that one? Okay, all right. Let me rephrase.
Yep.
Right? And so we go through those things. And once I felt back to sitting under that tree, I was having that conversation with God, like, why did you do this to me? He was like, I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourself. Yeah. But it's not too late. But you got to move right now.
Yeah.
And that was scary as hell. I owned a bread truck. I had a 4-bedroom house, 2 cars. I had 2 sons. And, my girlfriend at the time, she didn't work. Everything was on me. This was 2008. And I called my route supervisor and was like, yeah, you're going to need to get somebody to come and drive the truck. He's like, what's wrong, man? You sick? It's my truck now, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need somebody to come and drive the truck. I said to him, and he was like, what's wrong, man? You sick? Something going on? I was like, man, I quit. You can't quit. It's yours. It's your business. Sell it. Do whatever you got to do with it. And I drove away from there. Like, yeah. And then I got to my house.
What music was playing in the background whenever you left, and what music was playing when you arrived?
I was listening to, at the time, I was listening to a little zip drive, Dell DJ?
Yeah.
And I was listening to Nerd.
Oh, yeah.
I think at the time. Got to the house, though, and yeah, my girlfriend at the time was not happy. My kid's mom at the time, she was not happy. You did what?
Yep.
Because it's scary. Because I took all the income out of the house.
Yeah.
But over the next few years, God just kept sending me people. And this story could take forever, but like he put somebody else that showed me how to dress. He put somebody else that made me go and apply for a position at a school. Put somebody else who, when I called USC, they connected me with Carla Berry, who was at the school at the time, and they were getting ready to go into film making as a degree, and then that put me with another person who let me come and stay at their house because I'd never been to Columbia by myself. Like all of these people just came out of nowhere.
Has that stopped?
It has not stopped. It has slowed down. Tremendously. And to the point now recently, I'm having my own moral, my own quandary now. Am I supposed to stop now? because you have that conversation. Hey God, if you put me in the right place, I will. I mean, if you let me get back to school, I will do and go as far as you have me to go. And if you keep presenting the opportunities, I'll keep going. I'll keep fighting. I'll keep doing these things. And it's God's time, not your time. And so sometimes you think like, oh man, am I still doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing? That's where I am now, thinking like, am I still supposed to be doing the thing? And then you called me about coming and having this conversation. And then, someone else, like I posted on the other day on Facebook, I was like, letting this go. And just so many, and it was just that statement. I didn't say I was quitting filming, but so many people came into my, like, letting what go? You're not, like.
It could have been a balloon, man. What's this about?
It could have been anything. But
man, I was fighting on the porcelain throne. I let it go.
But everybody came with this support of, letting what go? Like, nah, man, we got to keep fighting. We got to keep going. We got to keep doing this. Yeah. And I've been an advocate for this for so long. Yet sometimes you get weary.
Yeah, I do that kind of questioning a lot myself, and the conclusions that I've come to is that, like, God, first of all, God, it took me having kids to kind of see this. God loves you like you love your kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people think that God loves you based on a work, or God loves you based on you being good, or God. I love my kids like no matter what. Like they don't got to be good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
To be fair, your kids are pretty awesome. So are yours. So, y'all have great kids.
But, like as a parent, there's so many unknowns with your kids that, like, you do the best you can, but eventually they're going to go off and make their own decisions, and you hope they're always good ones. But the scenario you play, especially when they're little and you don't know, like my kids are in a really good spot, and I hope that they are continue to be blessed and continue to be in a good spot. But like, if I had to, if one of my kids, one of my kids ended up in jail, I would be visiting them.
Absolutely.
Every chance I got.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I would not abandon them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
They would know that whatever visiting day was,
Dad's coming.
Dad's going to be there.
That's right.
But you aren't physically in that jail either, so.
but what I'm saying is that, like, that is how God sees us.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the asking him, because I do the same kind of thing, and I did for a long time. Like, am I supposed to be doing this? Because it can be incredibly lonely, and you can feel like an island unto yourself.
Absolutely.
Like when I worked in Newberry, I felt like, because I used to run sound up at the Newberry Opera House. That was like my first real gig out of school.
Do you know Frank Decker?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Andrew Skaggs.
Yeah.
So those were all kids to me.
Yeah. I got you.
Like coming in and learning.
Yeah.
But so while I was up there, they're like, I've worked with people that have won Grammys, won Oscars, Tonys, like just professional stuff. And a lot of people don't really know that goes on in Newberry, but it's right there.
Yeah.
But I always felt like we were the cast of like Gilligan's Island. And like the island was the opera house, and like all these famous people would come and somehow
get rescued.
And somehow they could make it off the island, but we couldn't make it off the island.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like everybody that I worked with there was like super good at their job, like super talented. And it's easy to feel unappreciated, underpaid,
unseen,
unheard.
Because
though you have a very close relationship with the people you work with, and you spend 14 hours a day doing, the job with them, at the end of the day, like, you're there for that job, and it's nobody else's job to make sure you climb a ladder.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's they're there because they're doing their job, and they may love you and they may think you're great and worth your weight in gold, but at the end of the day, they need you where you are.
Yeah.
And so it's not in their benefit to be like, hey,
You really need to
hey
climb the
crew,
ladder.
here's our sound guy, take him with you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's
right.
not their job.
Yeah.
And so you do spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff. And I think that, like when I started playing, I got into all this because I started playing music when I was like a teenager, like 14. And I just wanted to be better at that. You know what I mean? Like have, more skills that would make music better or make recording or the music sound better or be right or correct.
Yeah.
But I didn't have I didn't grow up in a musical household. I didn't grow up around a bunch of talented musicians.
Right. Me either.
Like all of my friends, we all started playing music and we all got really good. But it was never a thing for me where I felt like it was what I was supposed to
be
do.
doing. Yeah.
And but it took having kids and some age to realize as the years progressed, because like when you first start playing, you've been playing for a year and you're like, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. God, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And then your first decade rolls by and you're like, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. God, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah,
and then the
right.
second decade rolls by and you're like, God, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
And you're still doing it.
And you're still, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, you're supposed to be doing it.
it.
Because that's what you've been doing.
And
I think that's the realization that like God, it's like God wants you to have. It's like, bruh, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, whether it's been one day or decades. If you are doing it at all,
it's the thing.
It's because it's the thing.
Speaking for myself, I mean, I have always had the through line of music. I mean, it's funny. A couple years ago, my mom found some old footage of me as a kid. It was actually for my first birthday, and gosh, it's so funny. I remember having this. Obviously, I remember getting it, but on my first birthday, I got one of those tape recorders. It was like by like a Little Tykes, but it was a tape player, but on it had a little microphone. It was a cheap ass microphone. Where if you had a blank tape, you can record it and stuff like that.
That stuff was so much fun.
It was so much, but here's the thing: it was one of those things where or you could either sing. It was mostly intended that you could sing over the sing-alongs that you had as a kid, but it also functioned. It had a record feature as well, as a lot of those old tapes did. Tape players did. So like, I just think it's funny. It's like, oh my gosh, theoretically, I could have been recording music since I turned one. And like, and so, and then like I've had, and of course my mother being the talented musician and performer that she is, like I've always had that through line of music. And so for me, it's always, I've always, at least my relationship with music, has always been like, ooh, well, I love art. I clearly love creating. Let me go explore all the mediums that I can. Let me learn how to do. And no matter what happens, because I knew no matter what happens, I would always have music. And because I have seen through my life, yeah, you can have a career as an artist. Like, because I've seen the musicians and stuff. So I had that freedom, but I also am very lucky that I did, because not a lot of people do.
Coming up the way I came up, my parents, this is not a thing. My parents still don't understand what I do for a living. Neither does my siblings. My sister's a teacher. Like they are like, they know I work with film. They don't understand what it is I exactly do.
Yeah.
I'm the guy TJ can take the picture. That's what they call me. TJ can take the picture.
Yeah, he's good with technology.
He's good, right. Or that kind of stuff. And so, not shortchanging them or myself, but the idea that this could be a career for me I was always fighting with them about that.
Well, and I think there's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation of what
a career looks like.
Career is for someone that is creative.
Yeah.
You ask any actor, unless they're like Brad Pitt level where they've, started their own production,
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Denzel Washington, but you ask like working actors.
Right.
sometimes they have to pick up other jobs between movies or plays.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and I feel like that's probably something that needs to be broken down, is this illusion that like
Mhm.
for it to be your career, it is the only thing you're doing
There
at all
is
times.
there is a lot
Yeah.
of that, and a lot of that has to do with, I guess, the imposter syndrome
Mhm.
of which is not really intended for us, but it still rolls into the same. If I'm not doing the thing, then I'm not the thing. I'm not really I'm not in my career bag, and that is a false narrative. Like
Yeah.
you know, what does a career look like for an indie filmmaker? Well, it looks like, hey, you've made some films. You're
Mhm.
right. You're able to sell your work. You're able to get it streaming. You might pick up another job. You might instruct. You might teach. And there's so many harmful narratives out there that people try to put on creatives. It's like,
Well,
well, those that can't do teach, kind of thing.
they not only try to put that on creatives, they use it as a way to shame
Yes.
creatives. Where
Yeah.
it's like,
Absolutely.
I thought you were better than that because you didn't have to. Now I see you working over
Yeah.
here. Like,
That,
why are you doing
yeah.
that? And it's like, well, that's not how this
Any of this
goes.
works.
Yeah, that's not how.
Yeah. Speaking of like the illusion, one of the things that came up in conversation, I want to say a year or two ago, there was, I can't remember what movie it was, Banshees of Inisherin or something like that. It was an indie film, but it was one of those like the director came out of nowhere and it won a whole bunch of awards and got nominated and stuff like that. And there was a conversation shortly after where like it was from like the New Yorker or something like that, where it was like, hey, like what do these film producers that go on it, like what do they do in between films? Like, well, it's usually smaller commercial works, and the thing is, it's like, and they don't talk about it, but I think they should. You know,
Yeah.
I think it really should be a conversation. It's like, hey, these filmmakers aren't just like entertaining you. Like there are other aspects of film that you interact with on your daily basis that a film director produced.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and or even just having like a day gig. Like I don't think any of that should be used to like belittle.
Yeah.
It's like if you're an artist, then you need to experience life to have something to say.
Mhm.
So what better way to do that than like, oh, I create art, but I also pick up odds, like earning money any way you can,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like, because your time is still valuable, whether or not you're making the art or not. So like, I know plenty of like musicians, I'm not going to mention any names, but they like in Colombia, and like when they're not playing, dude, they're cutting people's grass, they're landscaping, like they're,
Mhm.
there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Whatever. If you're gonna be what used to be a real man, if you're gonna be a real man, then you're gonna go make the money to provide for your family any way you can, and all of that is respectable as long as it's by legal means.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not harming other people.
That's right. And I think that's the message I have received in the last few weeks. Clients walk away. I was doing a lot of that commercial work. So I'm doing a lot of commercial work, working with nonprofits, doing their social media and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Times get tight. They start the first thing they pull is video and any kind of production. And so, times get tight for them. We get pneumonia. We get sick completely because I've based the rest of my year on this, agreement that we have. And one of the things that you have to do as an artist is you have to be willing to step up and say, listen, well, we have an agreement. I need you to honor your agreement till the end of whenever we agreed to do it, because that's what I've based my time on. That gives you the opportunity to find something to fill the gap that's coming. But a lot of times what happens is people don't afford you the opportunity. They'll pull and they just stop paying you.
Yeah.
And then
And then you got to either be able to pay for the legal means to make
take them to
pay.
court to make them pay you.
Yeah.
Or you and then you're burning a relationship.
Yeah.
Or you eat it and you try to go find something else and try to save the relationship for, if they come back and times get well, they know they owe you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think again, these are the conversations that artists aren't having.
Right.
And so they live in a lot of shame and imposter syndrome about the job that they have to go pick up, or
And the other thing, the other kind of caveat to that I would love to see go away is like there's a lot of artists that feel like in order to feel like they have made it, that someone is going to pick them up and place them in that position of success or power or whatever. And like that's never
does not
happening.
exist.
Yeah.
Does
Like-
not
Like
exist.
when I say never, like it's
Never.
never
You have to
happening.
create your own opportunities for things to go the way you want them to go.
Yeah.
Period. This
You-
is why I'm still
Yeah,
making films.
Yeah.
It's like what I tell my kids. It's like, stop waiting for me to give you the keys.
Right.
You've got the keys.
Yeah.
Go do the
Go
thing.
do the thing.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, that's the only way to do it. And I got a friend of mine. He always said he's works in computers, but he's very successful. But he always says nothing is a thing until it's a thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, and like a lot of times you can't explain the thing to anybody, and so just go do it.
That's like
Yeah.
this film I've been trying to make for 5 years. I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
Nobody, when you start seeking that outside validation for things that is a vision for you, it dilutes the thing,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, here I am 5 years later and still haven't made the thing. The idea, I've seen it in my head thousands of times, but what I've come to realize is that it was never about the thing. It was really about the process of understanding that in order to get to the thing, I've got to be solid on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to know exactly what I'm trying to do and who I'm trying to be before I can do the thing. And that cuts two ways, right? Because sometimes that is, you're going to make the thing and it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to learn from that. Sometimes the thing is not going to get made because you allowed other people to taint the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't get made, right?
Yep.
So the takeaway is, like you said, do the thing while the thing is vibrant and it's something that's keeping you awake. Like, and that's what I've done with a lot of my films, a lot of the pieces that I've created, a lot of the commercials that I've done. It's always been about, this is a cool idea. I want to see it come to light.
Well,
Let's do the thing.
speaking of cool ideas, and you mentioned the wonderful film that you've got elegantly placed on your shirt. So, and I want you to lead into that off of this. This is something that you posted a long time ago, and I don't know if you remember. I commented on that post specifically because I wanted to see more of the discussion about it. Now that we have a platform, I want to ask you more, kind of expand on this and lead into what you are doing, and then we got a reel.
Okay.
that we'd like to go over with you. Talking about filmmaking specifically, new creators, people who want to really get the experience of telling a narrative story through film.
Mm-hmm.
You made a Facebook post, it was a while ago, that said something to the effect of, if you want, encouraging people to get into horror films because, as you said it, there's a very low bar. When I asked you, like, hey, can you expand on that? What you replied with at the time was, the horror genre is, generally speaking, you have the hardcore audience, but to the film audience, the purveyors of film as a whole, people don't generally have high expectations for film,
Right.
which gives creatives, very talented creatives, an opportunity to impress people. If people are not expecting to be impressed,
Right.
creating a horror film that impresses someone is relatively, compared to other genres, a little bit more accessible thing to do, especially considering, horror films tend to be more low budget. I'm thinking about, did you happen to see Late Night with the Devil?
Yes, I did.
The majority of that film, one set.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one, why not?
Yeah.
But two, there's a low barrier to entry to horror because we don't expect a lot from horror. We don't expect the stories to be as complicated. And most times when people sign up for a horror movie, they don't expect to come away with anything else but a couple scares
Yeah.
and go on about their business. But I think there's a significant opportunity for low budget horror to add a piece that has people talking as they leave the theater or as they finish watching. That's how I've based all of my film work, is because I look at horror as morality tales. So I grew up reading Aesop's Fables and Brer Rabbit and all these different things, right? But they all had this little core morality piece to it, something that I think is sorely missing from, you know, entertainment as a whole. Is the big takeaway, right?
Well, even and if you look back, you know, to that that era storytelling, it not just morality, but you know the significance of consequences, like in the Grimm's fairy tales.
Absolutely.
Like even if there wasn't a moral, there you understood the message.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think that in part is the morality of it, right? Even if you don't align with the morals of the story, the consequences of it are a cautionary tale, so to speak, right? And so what I try to do, one, since horror is such the low barrier to entry, people don't expect a lot from it. A lot more is forgiven in the horror genre. Horror genre is super wide. Well, so we say horror, but a lot of subgenres fall into horror, right? So we're talking about the psychological thriller can fall into horror. We talk about sci-fi thrillers, and we can talk about slashers. There's a ton of subgenres, horror comedies, right? That all fall under this horror big genre. And so what I've tried to do is create a catalog of films that, one, are low budget, right? That I can do relatively low, but two, that have a kernel of something for people to talk about afterwards, right? And you know, there are things that we don't want to talk about amongst ourselves day to day, that once we see it in a horror movie, we can access it to really discuss what's really being said. And that makes it a lot more interesting when we start to film, because I'm now looking at the production of how color plays a part, how all of the high-end, high-brow things that people attribute to more sophisticated films, we're burying in horror films when we make a film.
Yeah, we've often talked about Italian horror.
Yeah, Giallo is one of my favorites.
You know, it's just because you know there's such a heavy emphasis on lighting, right, and color, and using that to and even still, there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of contemporary examples. Mandy uses heavy emphasis on color, for example. Yeah,
Maleficent, which was Malignant. I'm sorry, Malignant, which was, you know, one of those films that was deeply influenced by Giallo horror films, Italian horror films.
Yeah.
And so, but again, that's a dying art because people think that we'll just put them in this costume. We give it a little thought, right? And it really starts to weave a web together that is a nice fabric for other discussions.
Yeah, I think about, you know, the original Blair Witch Project and like how much effort went into making it, but because people saw the finished product and made their own inference in how it was made, they just thought, oh, we can just make these ourselves, and then we spawned so many Blair Witch Project clones that are just aren't as effective as the original.
And they weren't even the first to do a found
Yeah.
footage film like that. You know, we had Cannibal Holocaust and those kind of films in the 70s that were films that were supposedly found footage films. We had Faces of Death. You're probably too young to remember.
I remember that.
You know, and so we had all these things. The idea, though, for that was most of those things were for shock value, right? And so it's the idea of spectacle, which Jordan Peele talked about in Nope. The idea that we're always courting spectacle. I think that part of that is definitely true, that we're always courting spectacle because it's the surface level of attention. Spectacle is the surface level of attention that you can give to anybody, right? Oh, they're making noise. Let's look at that. But if you don't have anything beyond spectacle, it's hollow, right? And so by the time you get to the end of it, you're not any better or worse or changed at all for having watched the thing that you watched.
Yeah.
What happens when you combine spectacle with that kernel of morality and a web of fabric that you've woven together through the production of color choices and palettes and all the different things? Now you've created a platform to actually have a conversation in context outside of the real world that you can then bring into the real world and talk about.
I totally agree. I think we should go ahead and get set up so that we can have a conversation about the footage that you brought us today. Before we go ahead and bring it up, do we need to do anything setup wise or?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Well then, yeah. Go ahead and
we'll see when we hit play. Then.
Okay. well, is there any way that you'd want to introduce any of this?
I'll just talk about them if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah. Go for it.
All right. Let's see.
I just pulled some scenes.
Is there audio or?
Yeah, there's some audio there. So this is a scene from The Harvest. We shot this, and ultimately we wanted to play up the creepy here. And so part of that color palette that we're talking about is sickness, right? And so you see this greenish, yellowish tint with the flickering light. Like there's a sickness here, right? That's what it's intended to convey.
Yeah.
Now, whether we think that sickness is the main character here or something else, we're coming in on the back end of this, and as you see, he's gonna walk in, and I'm talking through it, but you hear that he's stepping on plastic. And so this scene, this particular film is about homelessness, about a homeless man who is befriended and has his organs stolen.
Which I mean is a very real.
Yeah, I got the idea
Yeah.
for this. I was listening to NPR, and
Yeah.
they were talking about people that were being trafficked into out of Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And their payment was giving up an organ
Yeah.
to be transferred out. And so I wrote this, and like after I heard that, I was like, there needs to be a story about this. And so I wrote the story, got people on board, and we started the dialogue back and forth.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that one.
Yeah.
Did you want to ask anything about it, or I can just?
Here, let me pause it real quick. So now Harvest, that's a short film that you've.
It's
done.
actually always been. So it is a short film, but it's part of an anthology.
Okay.
So it's part of the Roost anthology. And the Roost anthology is not out yet, but this one, the Harvest, the Gazelle, and 3BM are part of the Roost trilogy, the Roost anthology. And it's all about chickens coming home to roost, right? Hence the name.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah, so, and all the stories have that in common. It's all about like, turnabout is kind of fair play. What you think is real is not real until, and so. Yeah.
So what this next clip is from?
This next clip is from the Gazelle, which is again part of that anthology. And here we have our main character. He's stalking a woman, so he's violating her home right now. He's broken into her house. He's feeling up her sheets. He's doing like there's a certain violation about having your space violated.
Yeah. I remember having my house ransacked as a kid, and they did. It's not that what they stole that was upsetting. It was the invasion into our stuff because they also vandalized the entire
Yep.
apartment, and that was there's an invasion. Yeah.
And so there's obviously the guy is a serial predator, and he is invading her space while she's not home. He's getting the layout of the land.
It's clearly not his first time. He's suited up
Right.
to have done this.
Absolutely. What you don't see here is that how they meet, and basically in the beginning he's offered to buy her dinner. She's turned him down, and she loses her purse, and that's how he finds her. And so there's this voyeuristic aspect of this portion of the film where she comes home and he's in her home and she doesn't know it. And so there's this thing about, being watched and not know that you're being watched, but having that feeling.
I really, and especially with the way that these shots where you can kind of see he's coming in, like that's such a great way to build tension because he's in the corner of our eye. He's nowhere near line of sight for her.
Right. And so, that's the idea to build the tension for the audience. The audience is fully aware he's in her house. We're waiting. We're seeing the mundane things that she's doing.
Also, as an audience member, I'm wondering, like, I'm seeing her. I keep seeing him come in and out. It's, where is he? Like, I know he's there. I know he's there.
There's that door. There's that door that he's behind, and he's watching her through that door.
Yeah.
So now she's gone on through her day, right? She's taking a shower. She's getting ready to prepare her meal. And, there's a moment where, I don't know about anybody else, but like if you're ever home alone, you're taking a shower, that moment where you're like, did I hear something? Or that moment where you're under the water and you're washing and your eyes are closed and you don't know, it's like, is there somebody else here?
Yeah.
And so we had a bunch of other stuff that we shot. But again, in the interest of a short film, we tried to keep it tight.
Keep it tight. Well, I mean, like you even said yourself, it's something that you've learned as an artist over time. What you need to cut in order to, when you're getting a bit too long in the tooth. Yeah. Concision is something that's learned.
Yeah. And so that particular film was is part of The Roost, and is not out yet. The Roost as an overall film is not out yet.
That was Gazelle. Was that the one that your wife gave you the idea for?
The Gazelle?
Yeah.
No. My wife gave me the idea for the one of the first ones that we did called it was a family fun night. Basically, they're all like gangsters around the table.
That was the free candy sketch,
free
right?
candy
Yeah.
sketch,
Which, by the way, whenever we do have this out, we need to link to his YouTube channel because you do have a bunch of like it's not just creepy horror stuff too.
No.
You do have a great sense of humor.
I try.
So tell us about this clip.
So this came from a film that we just did called They're Listening, and it was for the Jasper Second Act Film Festival.
Yeah.
And so here we tried to convey, older man.
Got a routine, like his shoes are already down because that's where he's going to step off every morning.
Yeah, it's the middle of the night. He's been awoken by a couple next door arguing to find that his wife is not in the bed with him, and and she's listening to the couple next door fight and argue. I think I included this whole, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I put the whole thing on here. This whole film is available to watch on my YouTube channel. But here we definitely tried to sell the nighttime, and
I've had neighbors like those neighbors, and I've had a roommate like his wife, and yeah, that's the reaction that I've had too.
Yeah. So I think part of this particular film is about loneliness, believe it or not. This film is really about grief. And, you know, the things that we deal with. As I get older, I guess I get to start, you know, you start realizing your mortality, that you won't be here forever, and that things, small things don't matter as much. And so that's what this film is all about, though I tried to bury it in a little bit of comedy. So that, well, for two reasons, right? We can't get people to have the discussion about it if they're going to start off uncomfortable. So we have to kind of give them something that they're familiar with.
Lower the barrier.
Right.
Meet your audience where they are. Yeah.
Right. And part of this film is about the comedy of banter between a husband and a wife, right? You know, they're going back and forth now talking about they're here. And I think did I cut it there? Yeah. So they're going back and forth. I don't want to ruin it for you if you go and see it.
Yeah.
There's a significant shift there. So you'll see that why it's blue the way it is, why why everything plays out the way it does. And
do we have one more clip?
I think there's something on the tail. Maybe I'm not sure. I can't remember. I did this in a little hurry.
You're good.
Yeah, and this is the trailer for The Roost.
In this park, there's a class reunion. Most were invited to a homecoming of sorts. And you're invited to hear their tales. Tales of revenge. Tales of the supernatural. Tales of horror. Actions have consequences. And the chickens always come home to the roost.
Yeah, so my little teaser of The Roost there.
All right, man. Well,
that's awesome.
This is great. So we'll have links to your YouTube channels. I know that, and we'll get all Graham will get all any other socials and stuff that we have you. Well, Dr. Jones, man, as always, I love having conversations with you, man. I'm so glad that we're able to have this conversation with you today. And man, I gotta get going to my side gig. Speaking of, but absolute pleasure, man. I'm so glad you came tonight.
Man, thanks for having me. And anytime, man. This is a conversation that needed to be had, and I appreciate the invite. So
yeah,
I'm tuned in.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure meeting you. Yeah, we definitely exchange information, man.
Yeah.
See if I'm working in the same circles. Anything you need, let me know.
Well, you know that